Hi, everybody. Greetings. I'm Romi Hill. I'm the designer behind Designs by Romi, and Romi is short for Rosemary. So you may sometimes see me called Rosemary Hill too. So I answer to both. So today is the second clue of my 2024 Mystery Shawl. And I am here to talk about the clue that dropped this morning and kind of go through the pattern and show you all of my little techniques that are in here and have fun because I love seeing you guys in the chat. I hope everybody is enjoying it so far. It's so lovely to see you. Hi, Brittany, Sue, Kathleen, Mary Ann. Judy. Hi, Patty. Oh, and Devorah's here. Yay. Dana, Di. Karen. Hi. It's so nice to see you all. So today I'm having like some issues with my bitrate streaming because it I'm out in the middle of nowhere, unfortunately. So sometimes this is going to be a little bit of a more of a delay for me to see you and what you say in the comments and then respond to it because my streaming software buffers more. So a little bit more of a delay today. But hopefully I will still get everybody and hopefully I will not miss any of the fun comments in the comment section. So thanks for joining me today. If you like this kind of material, please like and subscribe. It really helps me a lot on YouTube. Thank you. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about Clue 2. So hopefully all of you have downloaded it and taken a look. And I've already seen some questions in my Ravelry group about some of the stitches. So you have come to the right place if you had questions about those. I am going to demonstrate everything. So let me transition over here to my other camera. Okay, so we don't have um, any written instructions today in the pattern except for working the charts here. So I still have here my helpful videos linked. So if you forget anything or you want to go take a look at anything like that, you can click on those and get like just a tiny little tutorial on them. And then we're working with both of the colors today. So C1 and C2. So yay. Okay. So B is worked once and C is worked once. B is entirely in color 1, and then C uses both color 1 and color 2. So I'm just going to go right through here. Oh, and here I am completely thinking that, so, okay, so all this time I thought your name was pronounced Dvora, but is it Dora? So you have to tell me. Sorry if I mispronounced your name all this time. I apologized. So Dora, now I know. Okay, so let's take a look at the second page now. We have the key to the chart symbols, and that has changed a little bit. Some extra things have been added since the first clue. So every time I release a new clue, I add stuff to the charts and also to the abbreviations, both to the chart symbols and the abbreviations. So you don't really have an idea of what's coming up until the clue that you're working on. So always definitely check, even if you didn't see it before, um, it will be in the symbols and the abbreviations if it's mentioned in the pattern. So those have changed, and you can see now there's also the C1 and C2 indicators to show what colors C1 is and what colors. Oh, thank heavens. I'm so glad, Devorah. Yay. So I'm glad I wasn't mispronouncing your name. So anyone who's watching this and doesn't know what on earth I'm talking about, I am talking about the live chat. And if you're watching this later on, you can still see the live chat. So it's easier on your computer just to go over to the side. I'm just going to change back here for a sec. It's easier on your computer to see the live chat. You're just going to go over to the side, and often it just kind of pops up anyway, and it shows you have to get rid of it. If you're looking at it on a phone, it's a little bit more difficult to find. So you're going to go to the comments, and there are two dots right above the comments. So the first dot is the comments that people have made on the video. And then the second dot, when you swipe over, that's where your live chat is going to be. So everybody should still be able to see the live chat afterwards, even after this whole thing, because it's saved along with the video. Okay, so back to back to the pattern. Alrighty. So you'll notice that I have two colors for each of these. That's because before, remember, I was talking about how I always section off my charts in bits of 5 stitches just for counting aid. So this is going to be your C1, and this is going to be the colors used for your C2. Okay. So let's move on a little bit. And I think it's worth mentioning again here as we look at this chart that all the instructions assume that your right leg of your stitch is on the in front of the needle and your left leg is in back. So this is what that looks like. So you can see here, if you're taking a really close look at the stitch, that one is if you're taking a close look at this stitch, you can see here there are two stitch legs. I'm going to move this one over. Okay. There are two legs of a stitch. So there's the right leg and the left leg of the stitch. So all the instructions in here, all the abbreviations and everything are assuming that the right leg, and it's sometimes called the leading leg, is in front of the needle like this, and the left leg is in back. So it's really important to remember that because that can give you very different results if your stitches are mounted the opposite way. Okay, so hi Heather, yay. Okay, so you can see here right away on the chart some more baubles, and now you know how to make them perky from last week. So life is good with the baubles, I think, and I hope, because I know that you all enjoyed them. So, so because the stitches around the baubles sometimes end up being a little bit looser, they can tend to be looser. I did not put yarn overs around the baubles here because I thought that would be super extra loose around the baubles. So what I did instead is I basically on the next row, this is kind of, it's like how I fix a mistake if I've left out a yarn over. I just picked up the bar between the stitches and purled into it up above here. So, and you'll see that in the abbreviation section on how to do the stitch. So I just called it an increase one. So it's very much like a make one purl, but there is no twist at the bottom of the stitch. So I will actually demonstrate that also later. And then you can see here the no stitch symbol, and that's just a placeholder. Again, you're not going to see that in the written instructions down here because that would just be like an X or something like that. Like there's literally nothing there. So that is just a placeholder so everything lines up properly. And I also was talking a little bit last week about how I like to increase in pattern. So you'll find a lot of times in my shawls, just little increases like this that happen within the pattern, and it makes the entire repeat get a little bit bigger. So we're starting out here, we're going into this with a 10 stitch repeat, but after row 2, we're actually going to have a 12 stitch repeat because these two stitches are added. So this one is the basically the what you see is what you knit chart, which means that you are working the stitches, the stitch symbols as they appear to you. So it's kind of like a written expression, I'm sorry, a charted expression of written instructions. So this is basically just what you would read, like on the second row, you're going to knit two through the back loop and then purl and then increase one. So there's the other charting style is also at the end of the pattern. So just kind of looking over here at the comments to make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay, so again, we are going to have some double decreases here by the repeat section. And that means that we're going to have to borrow stitches. So take a look here and we can see there are 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches right here to work with. So let's see how many stitches this takes. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 8 stitches to work with, 9 stitches are used here. So whenever you see something like that, you are going to borrow one from the next repeat and it's going to happen all the way across. So if you are using stitch markers, that means that you will be moving your stitch marker, and I will show you how to do the stitch around your stitch marker. And it's also, I believe I linked it in the pattern. Yes, I linked a little tutorial in the pattern under stitch marker management, so you can also watch that. Okay, so then we're gonna come up here. Once in a while, I'm going to have like an extra little make one here because that's going to make up for the stitch that's borrowed there. So after this stitch is borrowed, there are no stitches in between here and that little edging. So there's a make one to make up for it and keep the pattern nice and continuous. So again, on this chart here, it starts out with 12 repeats here, and then I'm moving these side panels over here into the middle. So then up above in this area, that's going to add 2 repeats, so there will be 14 repeats. And then again, these side sections are moving into the repeat section, and they will be worked 16 times in this area. So this is to keep the chart from being unwieldy and really difficult to read. So when you read down here in the instructions, the written instructions, that is going to take into consideration all of the changes in repeats. So let me see. Okay, moving on a little bit. Okay. So one thing I wanted to call out in chart C, it is using both yarns, so color 1 and color 2. And you're going to change your yarns before a wrong side row. So that is because when you pattern this first row of patterning here, you're going to be using the loops underneath here. So I wanted the pattern to show up on color 2 and not on color 1. So I had to have like just one row of stitches here to work with when we go on to patterning up here. So this is a little bit of a different stitch right here. And this is on the wrong side, and I will also show this. You're going to be slipping each of these yarn overs, and as you slip it, you're going to be adding a strand of yarn over the top. So you're making a yarn over and slipping a yarn over. And so that's going to look like one yarn over with a double strand. So, and I will show you what that looks like as well. And then on the next row after that, on row 5, you're just going to be knitting that as though it were one yarn over. So it will be 2 strands, but you're going to just stick your needle right through the middle there and knit those. So then we're switching back again for a wrong side row here. So on this particular shawl, you're actually carrying your yarn up on the left side, which is unusual, I know. Usually you carry it up the right side, and usually stripes will start with a right side row and then work back and forth. So this is a little bit different. Okay, let's see. Checking. I have a question here. The technique with moving the marker while doing the decreases seems to require relatively large markers. Um, I actually use pretty small markers, so I don't know. I will demonstrate it again though. So I'm not sure what kind of marker you use. So let me see if I'm missing others. So if I do actually miss your question, just like keep kind of pinging me again. Sorry, because sometimes I get blathering on and I miss something. Okay, so I also have a different charting style in here. So we've kind of christened this WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, because this reflects the texture of the right side of your piece. So if you take a quick look at this, you can tell at a glance where there's a stockinette stitch background, like down here, where there's some garter stitch right here. You can see that. And then there's a stockinette stitch background here. And then as we go up, you can see at a glance what your texture is going to look like when you're looking at the right side of your project. So I think it's useful, even if you don't like following this type of chart, it's just useful to kind of take a glance at it and see what it's supposed to look like on the front, especially when there's some texture. And then also there's chart C is also in the what you see is what you get format as well. And there's a different key right here. So this is going to be a little bit different because it's going to have for some things, so there will have a right side and a wrong side. Some of the symbols do not show up on the right and wrong side. So it's just going to look basically the same as the other key, but there's some like the knit, purl, knit through the back loop and purl through the back loop. Those will actually have two different sets of instructions. So for whether you're on the right or the wrong side. Okay. So you get to choose this type of chart here that I was just showing, or you can choose the type of chart that's basically the expression of a charted expression of written instructions, or if you like to work from your written instructions, you can do that. I do suggest if you want to work from written instructions, even if you don't like charts, sometimes it really helps to get an idea of how the pattern is coming together if you just kind of take a glance at the chart. So you have that there as sort of just a reference point. So, and again, I think I'll just say this one more time. I know I always say this, so it's getting old for people to hear. When you're working a chart, you are going to start at the number. So here there's a number on the right side. That's your right side. You're going to start from the right side and work across to the left. So when you get into this repeat area, you're going to work just the area in this box 12 times. When you're going back on the wrong side, you're going to start on the left and work from left to right. Same when you get into this box, you're just going to work this 12 times in this area. So charts are meant to represent the actual act of knitting. So when you're actually knitting, you are working your stitches from your left needle to your right needle. So that is why the charts are formatted that way. Okay. And then Brittany was saying washi tape is great for charts. Absolutely. I mean, and highlighter tape is great. Like all kinds of things. I like to use Post-its as well, or chart keepers or Knit Companion. Always cover the top part. If you're using something like a piece of paper or whatever, something to cover the top, always cover the top and work up. That way you're going to see how your motif will grow as you go up, and you can see if everything is lining up. Makes it much easier to do. Okay, so let us move on, and I will show you how to do some of these stitches. Okay, so first, let's take a look at this little increase one right here on either side of the bobble. So if any of you are experienced lace knitters, you will definitely have left out yarn overs before. So this is going to seem really, really familiar to you. So I'm at the bobble right here, and I'm going to be picking up on either side of that bobble. So I'm just going to grab the bar of yarn that runs between the bobble stitch and the other stitches and put it up onto my left needle. So I have my right leg in front and my left leg in back. And now I'm just going to purl into it. So it basically creates a yarn over, but it creates a smaller, neater yarn over than if you had done it as a yarn over on the right side. So here we are on the other side. Make sure you don't grab the stitch that is the bobble is actually worked into. That's going to look kind of stretched out at the bottom here. So I'm going next door here and getting this bar here that's in between those two stitches, the bobble stitch and the next stitch. And I'm just going to lift it up onto my left needle. And if you were an English style knitter, you would bring your yarn in front and then purl a stitch, and then you'd be set here. So that, and hopefully you wouldn't split the stitch like I did. So then you'd be set. You'd have, so you have basically now it looks like yarn overs on either side of your bobble, like this. So it's just a neater yarn over than it would be if you were on the front side, if you had already done a yarn over. So again, I'm just going to go over here. I'm going to lift that little yarn bar between stitches and purl into it, then purl my bobble stitch. And then one side's probably going to be a little bit tighter than the other. Don't worry about that. If you should happen to get your right leg in the back, you can either reposition it or you can also purl through the back loop. So if this is only for when your right leg is in back and your left leg is in front, so if you purl through the back loop, that will keep it from twisting and you'll still have your nice yarn over there. Okay, so let's get to the end here. So hopefully I am not missing any of your questions, but let's see. Okay. So, Kathleen, if you see something that I missed, could you please let me know? Just say, hey, you missed it. Okay. So now that we've done that, that is going to give us, we're just going to be working along here, and then you're going to see that that looks like a yarn over now. And so I like to twist the stitch above like above the yarn over on the next right side row. And that makes the yarn over much less sloppy. So here's what it looks like twisted. So you can see that closes the bottom of the stitch right here and makes it neat. Let me show you what that looks like if I don't twist it. So that's what it's going to look like if it's not twisted. See how it's really open at that stitch right there? And sometimes in some patterns that looks perfect. And like in leafy, organic looking patterns, that looks really beautiful. In this case, however, I like it twisted because it just looks nice and neat. I just wanted one hole to either side. So another thing I wanted to talk about right now is I've seen a lot of people lamenting how it looks sloppy. So don't worry about it. Most of that will black out when you're finished. So don't worry about like slightly different sizes of yarn overs like this, or don't worry about bobbles that are slightly misshapen. Most of it will block out. I'm actually using a little heavier yarn here to demonstrate, and this is probably about the size of that the ball band would suggest for this yarn. So in contrast, you're using um, a little bit of a lighter yarn than this and a larger needle. So with that larger gauge, it's going to look sloppier right after you've knit it. And especially if you are using yarn that has alpaca in it, alpaca seems to look really rough really easily. So then it looks gorgeous after it's blocked. So don't worry about it. And if you feel really nervous about it, um, definitely just steam it out a little bit, see how it looks. Okay, so let's look over here. These are offset. So whenever you see something like this where there are decreases offset from the increases like that, that's going to create a little bit of a wave. So if you've seen like a feather and fan or like a chevron stitch or something like that, those stitches are created by offsetting increases like yarn overs with decreases. So you're going to get a little bit of a wave from this stitch right here, and that is correct. So do not worry. Okay, so just checking everything, making sure nobody has um, a question that I missed. So Devorah said a make one would be twisted, make one purl. Absolutely. A make one purl would be twisted. This is something different. Okay. I am going to stick in a marker so that I can demonstrate. So this is the size marker. I don't, well, let me see. Okay. Actually, let me grab a larger needle here and bigger yarn, and I'll demonstrate on that so that um, just to prove, like I swear that I can do this with a small marker. Okay, so this is more the size of my needle. Um, I don't know if this is the size that that you were talking about before. So let's try an SK2P first. So that's actually, I had this, need to put this over here like that. There are actually two stitches to the right. Okay, so I'm going to do an SK2P first. So I'm going to slip one stitch. So I actually have to get this marker out of the way because it's a little big. And then I am going to work around the marker completely. So my needle is sticking through the two stitches, one on either side of the marker, and I'm going to knit those together. And I'm leaving all that stuff on there. And now I'm going to pass that stitch over here. Okay, so as I'm going, I can pull my marker over to my tip like this and just scoot it on there as a sort of a last step. So let's do, This is a center double decrease. So I'm going to do a center double decrease. And let me stick this back here. Okay, I think this one is probably easier to do. So this is a CDD. Some I see it also called S2K2P, but I think it looks too much like an SK2P. So I like to call it CDD because it's really obviously what it is, and you're never going to read it and think, oh, SK2P. So on this one, that's that little like little carrot with a stick in the middle there. So in this one, I'm going to slip these two stitches knitwise. And what I'm trying to do here is to get this middle stitch to come out on top. So when you see this, you want that middle stitch. It's going to continue all the way up. So if you're getting a broken column of stockinette here, there's something wrong. So this middle stitch, you're going to see that continuing all the way up. So to do that, that means I need to slip this stitch first. So I'm going to slip these two together. I want to reorient them. So I'm going to slip them two together knitwise. So this is like I'm going to knit two together, but I'm just going to slip them over to my right needle. So to work around the stitch marker, I'm going to knit the stitch on the other side of the stitch marker. So my stitch marker is going to stay on there. And now I am going to pass these two stitches over. So that's the stitch that I knit, and both of those stitches that I slipped are getting passed over. And as a last step, I stick my needle right through the marker and then pull my other stitch off of my left needle. So it's going to be over here on the right side, and then I can just work on. So that is what it looks like. That is what it looks like with a kind of a smaller marker. So you can actually do this also with, I showed this, I put up a reel today on Instagram that shows me doing it with one of these little light bulby looking markers, and it works too. So it's just basically getting the muscle memory, and then you can do it with any stitch marker at all. It works really, really well. Okay. Yeah, Sue, definitely the CDD is the stitch marker in that section. Okay. So, let's see, just going over here to make sure. So Kathleen asked, I wonder if the give in your yarn makes a difference. It does, for sure. This is if you, and it also makes a difference if you're a tight knitter. So if you're a super tight knitter, it's going to be more difficult to knit around your marker. And if you are using a yarn that has no give to it at all, and you're a tight knitter, it's going to be it's going to be a lot more difficult. So the give in the yarn definitely does actually help a lot. Okay, so I'm going to do this with my larger marker here. So I'm just going to do a CDD, center double decrease, around this marker right here. So I'm going to slip two as if to knit them together. Then I'm going to go around this marker. I don't want to get my needle going through the marker, and I'm going to knit one. And I always just kind of hold it down so it doesn't go anywhere. Now I'm going to slip those two stitches over the top, slip the marker on, and then this is the stitch I knitted. I'm going to take that off the needle. So there you have that CDD around a stitch marker, a larger one here. Okay, alrighty. So let's take a look at like I think that's about those are the difficult things in this chart, or not so difficult, not so much difficult as they are different maybe, but still pretty straightforward, I think. Okay, and now let's go over here. So this little stitch here is very fun because it's it gives you kind of a two-story yarn over. So I like to use it. It gives it kind of a lacier effect in there. So let me show you what that would look like. So I'm just going to yarn over and knit two together to the end here, and we'll show you what that looks like. Okay. So some of this, I probably should have taken out part of my Franken swatch here because I was demonstrating other stitches too. So let's get to the end. Alrighty. So I have just done this part here where I've been knitting two together and a yarn over. Now I'm going to do this little slip one yarn over here. Okay, so since I move my yarn back and forth really easily the way I knit, so this is going to look a little bit different between my style and English style. So I'm going to show you English style as well. So I'm just going to bring that forward. My yarn goes forward, and then I slip my yarn over as if to purl, and then my yarn comes to the front again for me to purl. So slip, that's what it looks like when I do it, like this. So if you knit with my style, this is what it's going to look like when you're doing it. And you're going to see here, each of the yarn overs now has two strands, but there's only one hole. So there's only one hole with two strands over the top instead of one strand. So now if I were going to do this English style, um, I'd be working in front here like this. So I'm going to slip my yarn over and then bring my yarn in front like that to purl. Okay. Now insert my needle into my yarn over purlwise. Slip it, and now purl. So I can do it all sorts of different ways. I can do it like this as well. Whichever is going to be more comfortable for you. So slip the yarn over and then yarn over. That works too. It stacks up the same. So whenever you slip the yarn over and you yarn over, this is what you're going to get. So it's easy to mess that up in purl if you slip it with while you're doing the yarn over. Okay, so let's come back here. I'm back to the place where I have my markers. I'm just going to turn around in the middle of the row and show you what that looks like as you're going back. So this would be like this next row right here. There's nothing but knitting. So you're going to be knitting across here. And every time you come to a yarn over, you're going to see these two strands across the top. You're just going to go straight into the hole and knit one. So it's just like knitting a yarn over. And even though at first it's going to look like it looks a little weird and you will think, oh, it looks like there are two strands there. That looks very strange. As you go along, you'll see that it just looks kind of like a double-decker yarn over, like a two-story yarn over, a yarn over with an atrium. Okay, so let's get to the end here. Some of these were above other yarn overs, so it's going to look a little bit different on my swatch. from how it's going to look on your actual shawl. But you can see over right here, this is what it's going to look like on your shawl. It's just taller. So here's a like a normal yarn over down at the bottom here, and here is my two-story yarn over. So because of the way that this has worked, because it's basically like doing a yarn over on the wrong side, the twisted stitches are going to be on the wrong side as well. So before, remember when I was knitting through the back loop on the next right side row after a yarn over, because this basically yarn over here, that happened on a wrong side row. So you are always going to skip one row, and then the one after that is going to be the one with the twisted stitches. So in this case, it's going to be your your purl stitches that are twisted. So you can see that there's a little like a double purl bump there. So you're going to purl that through the back loop. So here's a purl through the front loop. Through the back loop, you're going to, it's going to look a little bit different. So if you take a look at your stitch here, you can see this is the back loop back here on the back side of the needle. So you're going to insert your needle right like that through the back loop. And you can tell if you've done it right because you will see that the stitch twists. So you purl that so you can see on the other side, you can see the twist better, I think. So down at the base here, let me see. That's what it looks like on the other side. You can see that twist coming out of the yarn over here. So that's what it should be looking like. Okay. All right. So now if I were an English style knitter, so this is what it's going to look like when I purl through the back loop. It's the same, you do the same thing with the yarn. It's just where you put your needle. That's through purling through the front loop and now purling through the back loop. Okay, so let me get to the end here. Hope I am not missing anything. Also, like I see people talking about different knitting styles. So this is what works for me, and it may not work for you. So definitely take this as a starting point. And if it doesn't work for you, you know what it's supposed to look like, and now you can figure out something that does work for you. So that's like what I aim for in these, that you find what works best for you. Okay, so that is what it's going to look like over here. You can see that little twist above, and that is what the yarn over is going to look like. So it has more stitches on either side here. So it's just a little bit taller than another, like a regular yarn over. So here's a regular yarn over down here. That one's shorter. This one's taller. Okay, let's see. Looking around to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Okay, okay. So far, so good. Looking good. Alrighty, so one of the things about this is this has more than 2 rows each of each color. So I carried my yarn. So when I'm carrying my yarn up the side and I have more rows, so I'll just demonstrate on this. And I don't have the just 2 rows of each. here is what I do. So just going to show you on this little teeny tiny swatch here. So when I start out, I try not to make any knots or anything like that, but if you need to, no big deal. I would just use a slip knot to hold it so you can go back later and deal with it later. So this is going to be 4 rows. One, two, three, yeah, 4 rows of each of these. So just going to do it on this tiny swatch so that you're not watching me knitting for like 5 hours while I do it on a big swatch. Okay, so when I come back to the end here, I don't like just carrying it up the side without doing something to sort of twist that yarn in. Don't worry about that being loose here. So here's what I do. Here's my old yarn here. I bring it up behind and wrap it around. So you can either wrap it like this and continue, but I actually like to wrap it one more time and pull it up, and this is what it's going to look like on the side. I just let that sort of hang loose over here, and I'm just tensioning my second color there. So this is just going to help that yarn kind of climb up the side and help me not get it too tight as I'm going. So coming back here, I am always against cutting your yarn colors also, especially for a mystery shawl, because you might find out later that you just don't really like how it looks. So it's easier to go back and just rip out and have an entire nice whole skein of yarn that you can use for something else rather than having to store it away in little pieces. Okay. So here I have my second yarn kind of already in place for me. So when I start using that, it's already in place for me to bring it up to work this. Just from that little side where it was twisted. So now I'm just going to start working with that. I don't really pull it tight, just kind of normal tension there. And just going to do a couple rows here so you can see what it looks like. Just have to scoot through here. Okay. So let me just get to the end. There we go. Alrighty, so let's take a look at what this looks like. So this is what it looks like on the side here when you're carrying the yarn. And the whole idea is just to keep it kind of tidy along the way. So now what happens if you're like me and you're just sort of daydreaming and not paying much attention to anything? And you knit 4 rows, but you never twisted the yarn around. So I actually was working on something the other day and I did that and I was really annoyed. Um, so here's what I do when that happens. Just because I don't want to rip out the rows just so I can go back and twist the yarn together. That would be like really annoying. Okay. So what if at the end you get back here and then you're like, oh no, this is hanging all the way down here. I don't want to do that. So here's what I do. Um, I go over to the edge here and I'm just going to pick up a stitch along the side of my second color here. And I'm gonna put it on the other side of my color that I was just about to change. Oops, this has to, that was supposed to be in the back. So I'm just going to stick it over here like that. And now I am going to work the side here with both of those stitches together. So that's my first stitch and my second stitch. So it just kind of hides it along the side there. Or you can go back later if you don't want to do that. You can always go back later and just kind of sew that in. But I hate having to go back later and sew it in. So um, that is what I do. So let me make sure. So I'm not sure what you mean, Marianne, by you said even if your knit is right, you don't know if it's right new to me. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you could explain. I want to answer your question. Okay, so here is a thing to talk about. So a lot of times you will see in a pattern it says slip with yarn in back or slip with yarn in front or something like that. So that direction is as you're holding the piece. So for instance, if this is the right side and the other side is the wrong side, and it says to slip with yarn in front, the yarn goes across the front. So if it says to slip with yarn in back, it goes across the back. So that always is the same even if when you turn over to the right side. So if this says slip, so like work a stitch and slip with yarn in front, that is as you are holding the work. So this is slip with yarn in front. That's slipping a stitch with the yarn in front. This is slipping a stitch with the yarn in back. So even though it's on the right side like this, it's actually just, it's the way that you are looking at your work. So this is front and that's back. This is the wrong side and this is the right side. So hopefully when you are working a pattern, it will differentiate between right side and front and wrong side and back. They're not the same thing. So slip with yarn in back just goes behind the stitch. Slip with yarn in front goes in front of the stitch, no matter where you are. So hopefully that clears something up. Okay. All righty. So, Kathleen, you said you would have cut it and woven it in at the end. I hate cutting my yarn. So I always think, and I think because I rip out so much, like in any design, I'm like knitting and ripping and knitting and ripping and knitting and ripping. I hate to cut up my yarn because if it doesn't work for one thing, then I know it's going to want to be something else. So I want to be able to go back and use that yarn again later on. So that's one trick I have for keeping from cutting it. And then there's another trick I have as well, and you will see that in the next clue to keep from cutting your yarn. I hate to cut that yarn until the last part when I make sure that I actually like the result and everything is perfect and just how I want it. So, got to respect the wool or the alpaca or the silk or whatever you're using. So, let's see. I am just checking in. Okay, just wanted to make sure that I'm not missing anybody's questions. So far, it looks pretty good. So I will just blather a little tiny bit. So I did, I did a tiny URL for the Zoom link that everybody was having problems with last week. So for some people it worked and for some people it didn't. So there is a tiny URL at the top for registering for the Saturday Zooms. So Saturday at 1 p.m. Pacific is a tiny URL at the top of the clue. And then at the bottom of the clue, you'll see the entire URL stretched out. So they go to the same place, but I know some people do not like following tiny URLs. So you can just use the one at the bottom, and then that should work okay for anybody who had a problem before trying to sign up. So I love seeing you all on Saturday. So I hope that you can join me. And let's see, just checking more. Okay. So, yeah. So anyway, so because I'm doing this live every week for the clue, I am not going to be doing my usual Thursday lives as well. It's just a little too much for me. So I did release a pattern this past week called No More, No Less. And I actually recorded a tutorial, so I just need to finish editing the raw video and then I'm going to post that. So if you are wanting to start those, and I totally recommend them because they change the look of any outfit. So if you don't know what I mean, go take a look on Ravelry or my site. So I will have a tutorial up on those to show you how to knit them. And it looks good. Yay! I loved having you there, Sue. And yay, Devora. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Nice. That will be so nice to see you too, Judy. Yay. I hope a bunch of you can make it. I always have a lovely time seeing your faces and hanging out with you. So I think I got everybody's questions. We're working on this. Like most of the action happens in my Ravelry group, but we're over in my Facebook group as well, talking about perky baubles and, whatever. So, so feel free to hang out in both places. And it's a great community, so don't be shy. Come and knit with us. And I will see you. I'll see you tomorrow for those of you who can join me for the Zoom 1 p.m. Pacific, tomorrow, Saturday, May 4th. And then I'll be live again next week for the next clue drop. So take care, everybody. Have a great weekend. Have fun with your clue. And I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.